In the tangled web of love, betrayal, and ambition, sometimes the darkest secrets come to light when we least expect them. As the sun set on an ordinary evening, the familiar hum of eyewitness news crackled through the air, delivering a shocking report that would shatter the fragile world I thought I knew. Amidst the chaos of a broken marriage and hidden truths, the battle for custody of two innocent children loomed on the horizon, entwined with DNA results that threatened to unravel everything. This was not just a story of a family in turmoil. It was a gripping saga of betrayal that would challenge the very foundations of trust, love, and the pursuit of justice. Honesty is often touted as one of the most invaluable traits a person can possess. I strive to embody that principle, but I'll admit, sometimes I stray from the truth, even if just a little. When I married my beautiful wife, Kirsten, and welcomed our two wonderful children, life seemed perfect. But everything shattered when I discovered that neither child was biologically mine. To make matters worse, each of them had a different father. It's been said that love and hate exist in a fragile balance, and I've learned just how easily emotions can swing from one extreme to the other. There was a time when I would have gladly taken a bullet for Kirsten. Now, it takes all my strength to suppress the darker urges that creep in. My name is Abraham Ryan, but most people call me Abe. I had a typical high school experience, average grades, dabbled in a few sports, and graduated in 2001. The very next day, I enlisted in the Army, spending 4 years as an artilleryman and completing a tour in Afghanistan. After my honorable discharge, I took advantage of my service benefits and enrolled in college courses, eventually earning a degree in computers and electronics. It was during this pivotal time that I met Kirsten. Our connection was instant, and after a few months of dating, we fell in love. I was over the moon when she accepted my marriage proposal. But there was a hitch. Kirsten's father, Bart Robertson, a successful CEO of a major accounting firm, was wary of my intentions. Concerned that I might have ulterior motives regarding Kirsten's trust fund, he insisted on a prenuptial agreement to safeguard her assets. At the time, I was unaware of Kirsten's financial situation or her family's wealth, but I reluctantly agreed to the marriage after consulting with an attorney who happened to be a close friend of my father's. The prenup included a standard clause about adultery. If either party were to cheat, they would receive no financial support in the event of a divorce. I wasn't concerned. I was committed to Kirsten and had no intentions of being unfaithful. Bart's skepticism weighed on me, but I understood his apprehension. Following college, Kirsten joined her father's company, starting from the bottom like any other recent business graduate. It seemed there were no special privileges for the boss's daughter. I transitioned to full-time employment with the service company that initially hired me part-time during my final 2 years of college. As a field service representative, I was responsible for troubleshooting and repairing computers, servers, and networks. The job was rewarding, offered a competitive salary, and provided excellent benefits. Together, Kirsten and I were doing quite well. Fortunately, my work didn't require frequent travel, though I did have occasional trips every few months for training seminars on the latest technology. Kirsten would often spend several nights at her parents' place, supposedly working on a project for her father. Initially, our marriage thrived. We enjoyed fulfilling jobs and managed to save for a lovely 3-bedroom starter home. I surprised Bart by declining his offer to cover the down payment, insisting that Kirsten and I had been saving up for this for a long time and wanted to achieve it on our own. While that was true, I also sensed Bart's resentment towards me and wanted to avoid giving him any leverage. Before our relationship took a turn for the worse, I envisioned a lifelong partnership with Kirsten. She never raised any red flags, and our intimate life was fantastic. We often enjoyed dinners and dancing, frequently concluding our evenings in celebration. We attended various corporate events hosted by her father. Although I often felt out of place, Kirsten would stay close to ensure my comfort. Bart would enthusiastically highlight his daughter's achievements, introducing her to everyone he could. As an afterthought, he might acknowledge me as her husband but rarely mentioned my name. Little did he know that the company I worked for had installed all the servers in his firm and held ongoing contracts for various IT services. After a year on the job, I became a key contact for contractors working with his company, allowing me to build relationships within Kirsten's workplace that would prove useful later on. Our first child, John, arrived almost a year into our marriage. I'll always remember my mother's reaction. While she expressed joy that the child was healthy, a subtle frown crossed her face as she scrutinized him. Though she didn't voice her concerns, I tucked that observation away for future reference. Over a year later, our daughter, Kelsey, was born. Kirsten faced difficulties during delivery and opted for a tubal ligation shortly after. What began as a dream quickly spiraled into a nightmare, one I never anticipated. The love I once felt for my wife began to erode, replaced by a growing resentment that gnawed at me with each passing day. Kirsten and I had a candid conversation before making a life-altering decision, both of us agreeing that we had done our part for the continuation of the human race. Yet my mother's reaction echoed her concerns from the time of John's birth. It took her several months to muster the courage to voice her worries. One day she said to me, "Abe, I hope I'm completely wrong, but I can't shake the feeling that the kids may not be yours." Her words struck me like lightning. "What do you mean?" I asked, confusion washing over me. "Call it a mother's intuition," she replied, her expression serious. "But I really think we should have the kids tested just to be sure." I valued my mother's judgment, knowing she wouldn't voice such concerns without a solid reason, so I decided to give her suggestions serious consideration. Meanwhile, Kirsten and I were adjusting to our new life as a family, embracing the daily joys of the married with children lifestyle. Life in the Ryan household was wonderful. When people asked how we were doing, we often smiled and replied, "Living the dream." For a time, I set aside my mother's worries, convinced that Kirsten wouldn't betray our relationship. Everything was running smoothly until about 4 or 5 months ago. That's when Kirsten dropped some unexpected news. Her father had hired a new manager from New York and was considering promoting her to his personal assistant. "What does that entail?" I asked, curiosity piqued. Kirsten replied, "It means longer hours and potentially traveling to meet clients, not just around the country, but possibly internationally too." "How often would you have to travel?" I probed, sensing the changes looming ahead. "I don't know, maybe a couple of times a month." She shrugged, uncertainty lacing her voice. "And for how long?" I pressed further, feeling the knot in my stomach tighten. Again, she shrugged. "The previous manager sometimes was gone for a week or more." "A week? Or more?" I exclaimed. "That's going to be tough for the kids, and for us." "Don't worry," she reassured me. "I'm just one of 3 candidates. I doubt I'll get the job, but if I do, it means a significant raise, which translates to more savings for retirement and the kids' college fund. Besides, we have some time to adapt. They won't be making any decisions for a couple of months. In the meantime, I'll spend extra time with my dad until the decision is finalized." While I wanted to support her ambition, I wasn't thrilled about the potential upheaval. I also questioned the necessity of the extra money. My military background had taught me to gather reliable intel before making any moves, so I decided to adopt that approach. A couple of days later, I found myself at Kirsten's company, doing a routine check in the server room. Everything seemed fine, but I took the opportunity to gather information about the new manager. I struck up conversations with a few colleagues and did some digging, uncovering that the new manager went by the name Jake Riley. Jake had recently relocated from New York, where he had held a similar position at a well-respected Wall Street firm. This raised a red flag for me. Why would someone leave the bustling metropolis of New York for the Midwest? Surely he could command a higher salary there than in our small town. Further investigation revealed that Jake was married with a child, yet he had left his family behind in New York. That seemed suspicious. I made a mental note to consider hiring a private investigator. I already had the perfect person in mind. My Uncle Sam. No, not the iconic Uncle Sam. This was my father's brother, Samuel Ryan. When I approached him, I expressed my concerns. "Do you think this guy might be trying to deceive me with Kirsten?" "Yeah, there's something about him that raises my suspicions," I confessed. He supposedly left his family, wife, and child in New York after departing a prominent Wall Street firm. Why would he abandon them? Sam nodded thoughtfully. It might not mean anything, but then again, who knows? I'll look into it and see what I can find out. Okay, but I don't want to burden you with expenses, I objected. Let it go, he insisted. This is family, and that's more important. Maybe you can help me set up a new server or something. About a week later, Sam reached out. You were right, he confirmed. Old Jake Riley has quite the reputation as a womanizer. That's why he left New York. He had an affair with the wrong woman and found himself in significant trouble with his firm. They gave him the choice, leave quietly or be terminated. He's still legally married and has a son, but he's currently separated from his wife, who's living in a rundown trailer in Albany. Figures, I muttered, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. Sam had one more revelation. I did an extensive search and found out that Riley has a long history with Kirsten's father. He initially worked with Bart Robertson before moving to New York about 3 years ago, right around the time of his marriage. 3 years ago? I asked, alarm bells ringing in my head. Do you know if Jake and Kirsten knew each other back then? It's quite possible, Sam replied. They both worked for the same company, and Jake was known to visit the Robertson household frequently. That struck me as strange. Jake had never come up in conversation before this all started. I remembered those evenings when Kirsten would head to her parents' house, claiming to be busy with a project. I recalled the time she spent the night there, insisting it was for a crucial company project. There's another piece to this puzzle, Sam continued. I conducted a thorough background check on him and found his birth certificate. Care to guess who is listed as his father? I have no idea, I replied, my curiosity piqued. Bartholomew Robertson, he stated flatly. What? I exclaimed. You mean Kirsten's father? The pieces were falling into place, and a chilling realization gripped me. This was more than just a simple career change. This was entangled in a web of personal connections that could unravel everything I thought I knew about my life and family. I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me, but I knew I had to confront this head on. The truth was out there, and I was determined to uncover it, no matter the cost. As I sat in my car, a sinking feeling washed over me at the thought of Bartholomew Robertson. There could be another Bartholomew Robertson, but it certainly seems that way, I muttered to myself. I knew I had to keep my thoughts to myself for now until I gathered more information. Do you want me to initiate a comprehensive investigation? Sam asked, breaking into my reverie. Yeah, I affirmed, trying to keep my tone steady. And I'll make sure you're compensated for your efforts. I had a good relationship with Mabel, Jake's mother, so I decided to reach out to her. Is it possible to visit Mabel? I asked her when I found her number. Of course, Bart's not here right now, but you can reach him at his office, she replied. Actually, I'm not interested in talking to Bart, I said, choosing my words carefully. I have a significant favor to ask you. All right, she agreed, sounding curious. I grabbed a couple of baggies and drove to their mansion. As I arrived at the entrance, Mabel greeted me with a concerned look. What's going on, babe? She asked. Something seems amiss, I admitted, trying to gauge her reaction. Is it about Jake? She inquired. Yes, I replied. Does he stay overnight here? Yes, Mabel confirmed. He's staying until his condo is ready. Why do you ask? I explained my concerns about Jake's relationship with Kirsten, and Mabel nodded knowingly. They've known each other for a while, so I assume they spend time together. Do you think they're involved romantically? I'm not sure, but I plan to find out, I said firmly. One more thing, Mabel. How close is Bart to Kirsten? They've always been very close, she replied. Kirsten is somewhat of a daddy's girl and always has been. Interesting, I said, my mind racing with possibilities. Can you show me where Bart showers? Sure, Mabel agreed, leading me to Bart's dressing area. As I looked around, I spotted a couple more hairs with follicles attached. Bingo. I bagged them and labeled the bag B. What's happening? Mabel pressed. Her curiosity piqued. Honestly, Mabel, I don't want to say anything until I have solid evidence. I promise I'll update you on what I discover, but please don't share this with anyone. I won't, Abe, she assured me. Just be careful. Bart can be quite vindictive. Taking her warning to heart, I decided to conduct a DNA test on the children, including samples from myself, Bart, and Jake. I spent the entire $500 I had received and waited anxiously for the results. 2 days later, I opened the envelope with trembling hands. The findings were shocking. Neither child was biologically mine. Jake turned out to be John's father, while Bart was Kelsey's father. I felt a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, betrayal, disbelief. Not only had Kirsten cheated on me, but she had also violated our prenuptial agreement. Enraged by this revelation, I found myself at Kirsten's workplace that afternoon. As I stepped inside, Nancy Albertson, Bart's secretary, approached me. "Mr. Ryan," she said, her tone businesslike. "Mr. Robertson would like to see you." Equipped with my digital recorder, I activated it and placed it in my pocket as I followed her to a conference room on a higher floor. Upon entering, I was met by Bart, a well-known Superior Court judge, several executives, Jake, and what I assumed was Bart's attorney. 2 of Bart's security personnel flanked me, creating an air of intimidation. "Please, take a seat," Bart urged, gesturing to a chair at the table. I noticed a glass of what appeared to be whiskey already placed at my spot. "No, thank you," I replied, declining politely. "I'm still on the clock, and I only drink with family and friends. I'll stand, if you don't mind." My response elicited smiles from the room. It was rare for anyone to speak so assertively to Bart Robertson. His demeanor shifted as he unfolded a document and slid it across the table. "Have it your way, Ryan," he said, his voice steely. "Look, if there's an issue with billing, you can take it up with accounts receivable. I don't handle billing," I said, confused. "This has nothing to do with billing," Bart dismissed. "I want you to sign this right now. You don't need to read it. Just sign it so the judge here can put his signature on it and make it official." "What is it?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. "A post-nuptial agreement that supersedes the prenup you signed earlier," Bart replied nonchalantly. "Interesting," I remarked, placing the folded document in my briefcase without looking at it. "She never discussed this with me." "She doesn't need to discuss it with you," Bart asserted, his frustration mounting. "I'll have my attorney look it over," I declared. "If he agrees it's in my best interest, I'll sign it. Not before." Bart's face reddened as he jumped out of his chair. "You will sign this paper right now, or what?" I leaned in, challenging him. "You'll have your goons beat me in front of your executives and a Superior Court judge? Or maybe you'll have one of them put a bullet in my head? You'd better sign it, or it won't go well for you." I glanced at the judge, who seemed amused by the exchange. "Tell me, Your Honor, is it just me, or does that sound like a threat?" The judge nodded, acknowledging my implication. "I suppose it certainly could be seen as a threat," he admitted, turning to Bart. "Let him consult with his attorney. Once he sees that it's all legal and in his best interest, he'll sign." Bart settled back into his seat, visibly irritated. "By the way, Your Honor," I said, feigning casualness, "is incest still a felony in this state?" I caught nervous glances from around the room, and I could tell Bart was on the brink of losing his composure. The judge sat up straight. "Well, yes, it is, but I don't know of anyone who's actually been convicted of that." "Just asking for a friend," I said, smirking at Bart. "Just sign the goddamn paperwork." He took a swig from his drink, and as I left the building, a wave of confusion washed over me. What on earth was brewing in the rumor mill? My mind raced as I pulled out my phone and called Sam. "Hey, I need a recommendation for a solid lawyer," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. "Sure thing," he replied. "You should reach out to my friend Frederick Marsh. He's sharp and knows his stuff." The next morning, I walked into Frederick's office, anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. After I shared my story and laid out the test results, I handed him the post-nuptial agreement that Bart had presented to me the previous evening. I had spent hours poring over it, and my fury only intensified. Fred, I said, barely containing my outrage. Can you believe this? Kieran would betray me like this? Fred, as he preferred to be called, studied the document carefully. Have you looked this over thoroughly? He asked, arching an eyebrow. Of course I have, I shot back, incredulous. Unless I've lost my mind, this states that I agree to be a cuckold and forfeit my rights as a husband. You're not losing your mind, he assured me, leaning back in his chair. It clearly states that you consent to your wife having extramarital affairs and relinquishing any rights to consummate your marriage. You're also obligated to provide financial and parental support for 2 children who, as we now know, aren't biologically yours. The only compensation mentioned is a measly $1,000 a month for their support. Other than that, you're in a precarious situation. If you were to divorce, you'd have to give up 80% of your salary and retirement savings. You'd be paying alimony and child support, essentially reduced to a living caretaker for children you didn't even father. That's got to be illegal, I protested, my voice rising in disbelief. It's not outright illegal, Fred replied, shaking his head. But it's absolutely outrageous. I can't imagine any court would endorse this. You'd have to be deemed mentally unfit to agree to such terms. What about their incestuous relationship? I inquired, my heart racing. Engaging in incest between consenting adults in this state is indeed a felony, carrying a potential sentence of up to 25 years in prison, he confirmed, his expression serious. Despite my deep reluctance to raise children who weren't mine and my hesitance to bear any financial responsibilities, I found myself caring for the kids and wanting to maintain a presence in their lives. But my main objective was to terminate this fraudulent marriage. Fred assured me he would prepare the necessary divorce paperwork, citing adultery as grounds and leveraging the postnuptial agreement. Given the circumstances, I suggest you pursue custody and let Kieran fight for them if she really wants to, he advised. We agreed to hold off on the legal proceedings until we found out whether Kirsten had secured a new job. In the following weeks, the atmosphere at home grew increasingly cold. Kieran reacted strongly whenever I brought up the post-nuptial agreement. What is this? I asked her one evening. Do you really expect me to agree to something like this? It's not a big deal, she replied dismissively. It's just something my dad wants you to sign. Did you even read it before signing? I probed, incredulous. Of course I did, she affirmed, a hint of irritation in her voice. So you want me to endure a loveless, sexless marriage while you pursue other relationships? Meanwhile, I'm expected to take care of your kids? This can't be serious, I retorted, my frustration boiling over. I am serious, Abe, she insisted. I love my job and I'm not quitting. I love you and you'll be provided for. So why does it matter? Provided for? I don't want to be taken care of. I want my wife back. I want a family of my own, not to be trapped in a sexless marriage, serving as nothing more than your live-in nanny. In a moment of defiance, I tore up the post-nuptial agreement and let the pieces flutter to the floor. Return that to your dad and tell him he can kiss my ass. Kieran's expression shifted, confusion mingling with a flash of anger. Can you tell me how long you've been involved with Jake? I pressed, sensing there was more to her story. Her eyes widened. I'm not sure what you're getting at. We knew each other in college, but that's all, she responded, her tone defensive. I find that hard to believe. I turned on my heel, heading upstairs to gather her clothes from the closet, relocating them to the guest bedroom. What's going on? She demanded. Since I no longer have a wife committed to fidelity, I explained coldly, I'm asking you to leave my bedroom. Over the next 2 weeks, I rarely saw Kieran. She spent most of her time at her parents' house, likely wrapped up in her affair with Jake. Sam managed to capture photographic and video evidence of their intimate encounters at a motel on the outskirts of town. My stomach churned as I reviewed the footage before passing it on to Fred. In one clip, Jake leaned in close to Kieran. Soon we'll be able to do this as much as we want, he said, a smirk on his face. And when your dad joins us in New York, we'll have a great time. Kieran smiled back, seemingly oblivious to the gravity of their actions. Yeah, and I don't even have to worry about getting pregnant with you guys again, she replied, laughter spilling from her lips. It was around this time that Bart entered the frame, catching Kieran's attention. "It's a pity your husband has to be so stubborn. He really should have agreed to the deal I offered him," he remarked, a sinister gleam in his eye. "But everything will be fine once we're in New York. They'll be taken care of forever." "Jake and I will arrange everything exactly how you want it, honey," Bart continued. "Abe's house and his parents' house will mysteriously burn down after they're all shot. Their bodies will be cremated and scattered across the countryside. No one will find them. We'll declare them dead, and then you'll have insurance. Home insurance, no problems with the kids. Until then, we'll lie low and give them no reason to suspect us." "What about Mom?" Kieran asked, her brow furrowing. "What's wrong with her? She's too scared and stupid to do anything about it." "Don't worry about her, dear," Bart said, dismissing her concerns. Kieran's smile returned. "I can't wait," she said, her excitement chilling me to the core. I was boiling with anger. Not only had my supposedly loving wife betrayed me with her father and her half-brother, but they were also conspiring to have us killed. This was no longer just a betrayal. It was a treacherous plot that threatened everything I held dear. As I stood in the midst of an impending storm, the tension in the air was palpable. The authorities had been alerted and the promise of justice felt imminent. But little did I know that the night would bring a cascade of revelations that would change everything. Kieran, my wife, dropped by our house with a bright smile that momentarily distracted me from the heaviness that lingered. "I got the job," she announced, her excitement radiating through the room. "Congratulations," I replied, forcing a cheerful smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. She embraced me tightly, planting a soft kiss on my cheek. "Don't worry, darling," she reassured me. "I promise this job won't affect us." As if the day hadn't been eventful enough, Kieran added, "By the way, Dad is hosting a party to formally introduce Jake to the company and celebrate my promotion. You're invited, even though he's not thrilled you turned down his proposal." "When's the party?" I asked, curious but hesitant. "Tomorrow night," she replied, excitement bubbling in her voice. "Make sure your suit is cleaned and pressed." I felt the familiar knot in my stomach as I reached out to Fred, updating him on the situation. He assured me that law enforcement would be present at the event, a small comfort amidst the turmoil. After dressing in my usual suit, comfortable yet sharp, we left the kids with my parents and headed to the party. Kieran looked stunning in a knee-length dress that gracefully accentuated her curves, even though I knew she could pull off an old pair of jeans just as effortlessly. "Make sure you behave yourself tonight," she reminded me, a hint of playfulness in her tone as we approached the venue. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with small talk and laughter. Kieran went to greet her father and Jake, while I took a moment to catch my breath. As I scanned the crowd, I turned to find Kirsten's mother, Mabel. "Care to buy a drink for an old lady?" she asked, her eyes twinkling. I led her to the bar, ordering a beer for myself and a cocktail for her. "Abe, you're a decent man," she acknowledged, her voice sincere. "I'm truly sorry for everything that's happened. Why does your husband harbor such resentment against you?" "It's simple," she explained. "You're too blue-collar for his taste. You forge your own path and succeed independently without relying on anyone else to do the dirty work. Plus, your military background doesn't sit well with him. He was rejected when he was younger, and he always wanted Kieran to marry someone already established, like Jake." "Does he know that Jake has a wife and child in New York?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. Mabel's eyes widened in surprise. I don't know," she admitted. "I had no idea about that." "Is it true that Jake worked with Bart before moving to New York?" I pressed, my instincts kicking in. "Yes, they've known each other for a long time," she replied, her face growing pale. "Especially since Bart is Jake's biological father, as confirmed by his birth certificate and a DNA test," I revealed, watching her expression shift from confusion to shock. "What are you saying?" she stammered. "That's right," I confirmed, pulling out Jake's birth certificate from my pocket. "I have proof that Bart is Jake's biological father. Were you unaware of this?" Mabel shook her head in disbelief. I had a suspicion that he was unfaithful, but I never found any evidence, she said softly. There's more, I continued. Neither of the kids is mine. Are you sure? She asked, her voice trembling. DNA doesn't lie, I asserted. Jake is Kieran's son, and Bart is Kelsey's biological father. Mabel's face drained of color, and I could see the realization dawning on her. Oh my God, no, she gasped. Did you know? I knew they were close, but not that close, she admitted, visibly shaken. What will you do? Let's just say things are about to hit the fan tonight, I replied, a mixture of determination and dread filling my chest. I understand, she said, taking a deep breath. Let me show you something. Pulling out her smartphone, she played a video clip of Bart, Jake, and Kieran discussing their plans to harm me. Mabel's eyes widened in horror. Oh my God, I had no idea. I'm so sorry, Abe. Please forgive me. It's not your fault, I reassured her. So what's your plan? I've had enough of his lies and abusive behavior. After tonight, I'm ending things with him, she declared, her resolve strengthening. Now let's go in there and act like everything is fine, shall we? As we entered the main area, Kieran was seated at the head table, sandwiched between her father and Jake, while I was assigned to a table facing them. The seating arrangement was less than ideal, especially knowing her father had orchestrated this separation on purpose. Yet, at that moment, I felt an indifference wash over me. Looking around, I noticed a man in a trench coat, accompanied by several sheriff's deputies, slipping into the room just before the doors closed. I scanned the table I was at, noting that no one would make direct eye contact with me or engage in conversation beyond polite nods. Even Kieran avoided my gaze, and I felt irritation bubble beneath the surface as I anxiously awaited the evening's conclusion. Bart rose from his seat, tapping his glass to gather everyone's attention. I'm delighted to see you all here tonight, he exclaimed, a broad smile on his face. Allow me to introduce our newest team member, Jake Riley. Some of you may already know Jake, as he worked with us as a contractor 8 years ago. He'll be overseeing our marketing efforts and collaborating closely with our clients to ensure their needs and our shareholders' interests are met. Applause filled the room as Jake stood, and I mustered a polite clap, feeling utterly detached. Bart continued his announcements. I'd also like to introduce his new personal assistant. Not only is she an outstanding contributor to the company with a sharp business mind, but she also happens to be my daughter, Kirsten Robertson. The use of her maiden name struck a nerve, and I felt a pang of longing as Kirsten stood up, smiling brightly yet never once looking my way. I wished I could sink beneath the table and disappear. But Bart wasn't finished. I've heard it said that personal assistants are often like work spouses, he remarked, casting a glance in my direction. I'm confident she'll go above and beyond to ensure Jake's professional life runs smoothly. As the applause continued, I couldn't shake the feeling that tonight was just the beginning of an unraveling that would expose the truth behind the facades we had all built. As they faced the audience, Kieran sat down, visibly embarrassed, and I found myself caught in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I was torn between wanting to retreat to a safe corner and the urge to confront Jake and Kirsten's father, Bart. Just then, Bart announced, "Let's enjoy the meal." Everyone dove into the food, but I could barely manage a few bites. My gaze kept drifting to Kieran, who seemed utterly captivated by whatever Jake was saying. She shot me a few sad looks, and I desperately hoped she would rise up and reject the job her father was offering her. But to my dismay, she didn't. The others at my table squirmed in discomfort, clearly uneasy on my behalf. Once the meal concluded and everyone started to leave, I made my way to Kieran, only to be intercepted by Jake. He extended his hand for a shake, squeezing with purpose to assert his dominance. I returned his grip even more firmly, holding his gaze until I noticed a slight grimace cross his face as he let go. "So you must be Kieran's husband," he said with a mocking smirk. "Yes, I am," I replied coolly, "at least for now." His surprise was palpable, and I saw Kieran flinch. "Don't worry," he said with a dismissive wave. I'll take very good care of her for you. Kieran turned to me, puzzled. What was that all about? She asked, clearly displeased. Let's see. Your father intentionally separated us, forgot to use your married name, and that work wife comment from Jake really irritated me, not to mention how chummy you two seemed. I don't appreciate being publicly disrespected like that, so no, I'm not very happy right now, I explained. I'm sorry, she replied. I'm sure Daddy didn't mean anything by it. I raised an eyebrow. I highly doubt that. I have to go. Daddy and I will be tied up in a meeting with some executives about an upcoming trip, so I won't be home for a while, she said. Well, before you head off to your crucial meeting with your work partner, there's someone I'd like you to meet. I gestured to a man in a trench coat who approached us, holding a sizable manila folder. Kirsten Ryan? He queried. Yes, she confirmed. You've been served, he announced loudly enough for everyone around to hear. Kirsten's face went pale, and gasps rippled through the crowd. She opened the envelope and read the first page labeled, Petition for Dissolution of Marriage. What is this? She asked, panic rising in her voice. A divorce, I replied coolly, citing adultery as the grounds. I've also included DNA test results confirming that Jake is John's biological father and that your father is Kelsey's. Turns out, Kelsey is your half-sister. Oh, and by the way, Bart happens to be Jake's biological father. I gestured towards the prenuptial agreement she signed at her father's insistence. You'll also notice there's a restraining order mandating that you, your father, or any of your representatives, including Jake, stay at least 500 feet away from me, the children, my family, or the house. If you need to arrange a time to collect your belongings, contact my attorney. I don't want a divorce, she protested, tears welling in her eyes. I want a trustworthy and honest partner, not one who cheats, lies, and schemes. By the way, I recommend you sign those documents promptly. You won't appreciate the consequences if you choose to contest it. I have various videos featuring you and Jake, and I doubt you want that information spreading to everyone you know. I assured her, don't worry about the kids. I'll take good care of them for you. What do you mean? She asked, bewildered. There are a few more individuals I'd like you to meet, I remarked, gesturing to the deputies. Bart and Jake approached us just as the deputies arrived. What the hell do you think you're doing, boy? Bart snarled. Screw you, jerk. I'm divorcing Kirsten and handing all of you over to the authorities, I declared. Bart lunged to grab my shirt, but a deputy stepped in, grabbing him. Bart Robertson, you're under arrest for incest and conspiracy to commit murder, the deputy announced, drawing gasps from the audience. 2 additional deputies apprehended Jake and placed him in handcuffs. Kirsten looked at me, shock etched across her face. Abe, you can't mean all this, she pleaded. I love you. Nonsense, you deceitful woman, I retorted. 2 more deputies detained her, reciting her Miranda rights. Bart's face twisted in rage, his eyes bulging. I'm going to kill you, you damn son of a... he screamed as the officers dragged him away. Nearby, a news reporter with a camera was capturing the entire incident. Mabel, a bystander, approached Bart and delivered a swift kick to his groin. Too foolish am I, she yelled. Screw you, jerk, I'll show you. As the scene unfolded, a deputy calmly moved Mabel aside while 2 others escorted Bart away. That evening, the news coverage was impossible to ignore. A significant upheaval in the local business community today, announced the anchor. Businessman Bart Robertson, accompanied by his daughter and a man identified as his son, was apprehended on charges related to conspiracy for murder and incest during an event meant to unveil the hiring of a new executive. The broadcast then shifted to footage of the arrest, capturing Bart's furious threats as deputies attempted to escort him away. The camera caught Mabel delivering a swift kick, and the anchor reported, authorities are currently investigating the allegations. The supposed victim of this plot, the husband of Robertson's daughter. In a shocking turn of events, Eyewitness News reported that he had filed for divorce and was seeking custody of their 2 children, despite DNA evidence proving he wasn't the biological father. I leaned back in my recliner, feeling completely drained by the evening's revelations. The trio of conspirators, Bart, his accomplice, and their shady lawyer, had been detained without bail, deemed a potential flight risk by the judge. The investigation, which had stretched over the past month, greatly benefited from a sophisticated phone system we had implemented for Bart's company a few months prior. This all-digital system recorded every call, both incoming and outgoing, with a clear warning stating that calls would be recorded for training purposes. Bart had naively assumed his conversations wouldn't incriminate him, but they did. Investigators managed to trace the payments Bart made for the orchestrated attack against us, leading them to some gang members who had been part of the plot. Shockingly, a few of these members chose to cooperate with authorities, providing detailed accounts of the entire scheme. It turned out that the conspiracy involved not just Bart, but also a local attorney and a superior court judge. Both Mabel and I, despite our strained relationships, decided to testify against our respective spouses. The video evidence collected by Sam proved to be invaluable, alongside the DNA results I submitted to the district attorney. In a chilling discovery, we found out that Khan's inappropriate relationship with her father had started during her high school years. He was the one who introduced her to Jake, further complicating our already tangled lives. In the end, justice prevailed. All three conspirators were convicted on all charges and faced lengthy prison sentences. Mabel, surprisingly, was anything but unintelligent. Unbeknownst to me, she held 2 master's degrees, one in business and another in economics. She had meticulously monitored Bart's business dealings and had a clear understanding of the divorce proceedings. In a stunning turn of events, she outmaneuvered Bart, claiming nearly all of his assets, including the house and the business. In just 6 months, she revitalized the company, transforming it into a profitable venture. Not only that, but she also stepped into the role of a loving grandmother, caring for the children with a warmth that I hadn't expected. Before she began serving her 25-year sentence, I encountered Kirsten one last time. "I've signed the divorce papers," she stated flatly, pushing the folder across the table toward me. After confirming that all the signatures were in place, I couldn't help but question her decision. But why? I thought we were deeply in love and planning a life together. Kirsten's face fell. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice heavy with regret. "He has always been my first love. I thought I could move past that, but apparently I couldn't." "Then why hurt us? Why harm your own children?" I pressed, frustration bubbling to the surface. She shrugged, looking lost. "I had hoped you would agree to the terms Dad proposed. When you didn't, I felt I had no other option." "It was foolish," I replied, bitterness creeping into my voice. "You realize that, don't you?" "I'm sorry," she pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. "I know you don't believe me, but I truly loved you. Is there anything I can do to make amends for all the pain I've caused you?" I glanced at her, taking in the weight of our shattered dreams. "Just one thing," I said coldly, turning to leave. "Rot in hell." As I walked away, the finality of it all hit me. The love I thought we shared was now just ashes, buried under the weight of betrayal and heartbreak. Life had thrown us into a whirlwind, and somehow I had to find a way to rebuild.